6 months ago, I moved to my new home in a new city, and I'll keep it private for my privacy, and you'll see why later in the story. I met my new neighbor. The first impression of him was that he was very nice, funny, and a down-to-earth guy, but his behavior began to change after getting to know him. He's becoming a bit weird. Then I met his son. He was telling me that his father was threatening him with stupid things because he was playing in the neighborhood and he only liked for his son to play at his house. He seemed like a hovering parent that did not like his son to go anywhere or to have any type of freedom. My neighbor began to be mean to everyone that lived near us. It became very distant, as if he wanted us to probably get away from him. At least that's what I was assuming. One night, it was around 2 a.m. when I was awakened by screaming and arguing. I stayed in my bed and I covered my ears with my pillow, but my window was open because I liked the fresh air. The arguing continued, then all of a sudden it stopped. I heard grunting and something being dragged across some type of floor. I got tired of hearing the noise, so I decided to get up and close my window, which is actually facing my neighbor's house. I got up, and as I were getting ready to close my window, I looked up at my neighbor's house, and I saw something hanging through a window, so I took this video. I didn't know what this was, but the prior argument that I heard told me that that was a body hanger from the ceiling. I shut my window very quietly, and I called the cops, but I whispered while I was on the phone with them. I don't know why, and at that point I didn't want to know why that happened. The person that he was arguing with was one of his son's friend's father. They were arguing over something my neighbor said to his son's friend. The police eventually came and they arrested him. I told them not to come over here so I didn't have to make a report, so I went down to the station. My neighbor has already been through trial, and he actually received a death sentence, but I don't want to give too much information because it'll bring up who I am.
Do you believe that a wish comes true if you want something badly enough? At first, I didn't believe in that at all. Just wish? That's BS. My wishes never came true, no matter how much I wanted them to. But now, I do believe it. And you would believe me if you listened to the story I'm about to tell you. There was a man I loved the most in the world. I had wanted him for such a long time. I always watched him from a distance, and not once did he so much as gaze in my direction. Actually, he had a girlfriend, and he didn't like me. However, I wanted to become one with him, forever. So I prayed, every day desperately, to make him mine. Hiding next to his house, I watched him every night. I felt like I was with him when I saw him through the window. I tried to share a moment, like watching him eat, sleep, laugh, talk, or even just walk around. I was happy, but I couldn't make him mine, no matter how hard I tried. We just had nothing to do with each other. I prayed like crazy, day and night, for him to be mine, but it was futile. No matter how often I prayed, nothing changed. I ended up cursing the god for ignoring my invocations and lived in a state of constant frustration, thinking that my life would forever remain empty. Then one day, an idea suddenly came to me. This is it. I can finally make him mine. And soon, I decided to put my plan in motion. One late night, I snuck into his house and slammed his head with a big frying pan while he was asleep. He was rendered unconscious, and now I could lay down right next to him. I could smell his scent and hear his heartbeat and the sound of his breathing. I could feel his presence so vividly, laying there. That was the moment my dream came true. I knew I had done something wrong, yet I couldn't regret it. because this was the only thing I'd ever dreamt of in my life. And the man whom I wanted so badly was here, right next to me. I thought he may have suffered serious brain damage from the impact. Maybe he would be disabled. It didn't matter, as long as he remained by my side. My dream came true. Do you understand what I said before? Now I understand what so many people used to say. If you want something desperately enough, you can get it. Nothing is impossible. Now I can die without any regret. He is finally with me. However, my satisfaction was short-lived when I realized the cost of this moment would be my life as I knew it. Sooner or later, the police would surely catch me. I don't want to leave his side ever again. I lie next to him, wrap a string around his neck and mine, and pull it. I'll just sleep with him forever.
Not long ago, I went to see my older cousin. He lived in a remote rural village. I was a teenager without a driver's license, so I took the bus. However, I accidentally ended up taking the wrong bus. This bus was going to another town. Inevitably, I got off in the middle of the road. It was a 40-minute walk from there to my brother's house. Also, the area was so remote that there were very few buses around there. I ended up just deciding to walk. There were only fields around and not a single person was seen passing by. Just then, I saw some scarecrows standing in the field, which was very unusual. They all looked like real people. I looked at one of the scarecrows. They must have set up some mannequins, I thought. Curious, I came a little closer, and they were even more shocking up close. The mannequin seemed much more real than I had thought. The skin looked real. It felt like a real person was standing here. I got goosebumps all over me. I looked at them vacantly, thinking, what are these for? The scarecrows all stood in the same position. They were standing in a strange position with their body tilted at an angle. It was such a strange and creepy sight. Just then, one of the scarecrow's eyes suddenly moved and stared at me. I was so surprised that I fell back. The scarecrow moved towards me as soon as I thought I had misdeemed it. I screamed and started running like crazy. Ah! Just then, a scarecrow, or a man dressed as a scarecrow, rushed towards me with a sickle in his hand. He ran after me, making some weird sound. I shouted as I fled desperately. What the hell is wrong with you? The scarecrow kept chasing me and making that weird sound. It sounded like a language I couldn't understand. As I glanced back, the scarecrow swung a sickle at me. My legs gave way with fear. Thinking that I'd be ripped apart and killed if I was caught by him, I ran away. Fortunately, I soon managed to get out of the field. When I looked back, I couldn't see the scarecrow anymore. I didn't understand why he was standing there for so long, pretending to be a scarecrow. One more thing I remember was that when I glanced at his face as I ran away from him, he was laughing. It seemed as if he was truly enjoying it. At first, I thought it was just someone's nasty joke, but I could tell it wasn't when he swung his sickle at me. He was literally trying to kill me. I almost lost my neck. When I got out of there, I immediately called the police. Shortly after, when the police arrived at the scene, they found no scarecrows at all. However, they did find evidence of murder, such as unknown bloodstains and flesh in the field. They're continuing to search the field. What was the scarecrow that was running after me and the rest of the scarecrows doing there? I still have terrible thoughts about it to this day. Were the rest of the scarecrows the bodies of the people he killed? If I didn't get out of there, would I have become one of those scarecrows? Or were the scarecrows other murderers in disguise?
I used to live with my husband and our lovely son. However, our family was unhappy. We had always struggled with poverty ever since my son was born. At times we suffered hunger, and it caused many arguments between us. My husband hadn't worked for 13 years and spent his days drinking. We were just barely getting by with whatever money I could bring. In time, we found out that our son suffered from mental health problems. However, I ended up keeping him in the house because I didn't think it was too serious. We'd never had any major accidents after all, until the incident. One day I brought home a watermelon that I had received from one of my friends. It was sweet and delicious. After finishing the watermelon, my son was so happy. He said it was the best thing he'd ever eaten. I was pleased that I could share it with him. But no one expected the disaster it would bring. In the following weeks, he became madly obsessed with watermelons. He pestered me day after day to buy him another, and started to get angry when I told him that we just didn't have the money. Once I woke up to him standing by the bed, staring down at me.
I want to eat a watermelon. A sweet watermelon.
His frantic shrieks scared me so badly. I started to take money away from our necessities, just so that I could buy him a watermelon or two every day. Whenever he woke up, he would look for the watermelons and eat them. However, he kept saying that the watermelons I brought home didn't taste the same. Not like the one my friend had given me. Sometimes he'd even throw away the half-eaten melons in anger and scream his rage. I felt so helpless, but still, I didn't want to take my child to a mental hospital. So, I decided to wait a little longer, hoping that his condition would improve. And it did. He started to seem a little happier, more stable again. I even got brave enough to tell him that our financial situation had worsened and that I couldn't buy watermelons for a while. He seemed to take the news with surprising patience. I was relieved. Then, one morning, I woke up to my son's screams.
Where's the watermelon? Give me the watermelon!
My husband and I rushed to the kitchen. I could see our son rummaging through the fridge and kitchen cabinets. When he noticed us, he started to stumble over. There was a kitchen knife in his hand.
Where's my watermelon? Watermelon. A sweet watermelon.
His eyes seemed to roll in his head in an unnatural, terrifying way. And then, suddenly, without any warning, he stabbed my husband to the side of his head. Fresh blood splashed all over. I could just stand there in utter shock. It felt like I wasn't really there. It just couldn't be real. Then my son shouted with a wide smile,
I found it!
That finally snapped me back to reality. I started screaming and called the police immediately. By the time they arrived, my husband was already dead. They found our son holding his head, crying and mumbling that the watermelon tasted odd. When he saw me with the police, he tried to come at me with the knife too.
Another watermelon.
The police overpowered him and took the knife away. At that point, I just passed out. After that, my son was confined to a mental hospital. The nurses tell me that he's still trying to search for his sweet watermelon.
One rainy night 3 years ago, I was driving on a quiet road with no other cars. Despite of the heavy rain, I managed to spot a soaked-up man standing at the side of the road. His presence was strange. There was no place for pedestrians anywhere nearby. I thought that something may have happened to him, so I stopped the car. My headlights lit him up slightly. He seemed to be grinning widely. I was surprised, as my initial assumption had been that something was wrong.
But if that was the case, why would he be laughing like that? I lowered my window, only a little, feeling unsure. The man approached. When he got closer, and I got a better look at his face, my heart dropped. He wasn't smiling. He had no upper lip at all, as if it had been cut off. I could see his eyes were red. I wasn't sure if all the water running down his face was rain, or if there were tears mixed in. I spoke in a trembling voice. "Sir, do you need any help?" Then he suddenly screamed and rushed at me. "You should be like me!" He took out his knife and stuck it through the small opening in the window, madly trying to force it down further. I hurriedly closed the window and started the car, then hit the gas. I could see him chasing me like crazy from the rearview mirror. I floored it with all my might and got the heck out of there. I don't even remember exactly how I got home, and my trembling heart wouldn't calm down until morning. Even after all these years, I tremble whenever I think about that night. I don't have any idea what that man's story could have been, what kind of a person he was, or if he was even human. But one thing is for sure, I will never drive on that road again.